He invited the alien girl into his tent to warm up the snow, fell in thick curtains across the frozen landscape of Kepler 442b, making visibility nearly impossible beyond a few meters. Marcus pressed his thermal scanner against the frosted visor of his environmental suit and swept it across the barren terrain. The readings showed nothing but ice and rock formations scattered across the hostile world that humanity had been surveying for the past 6 months. The expedition had been routine until the sudden temperature drop caught everyone off guard. What started as a manageable -20 degrees Celsius had plummeted to -60 in less than 4 hours. The base camp was still 12 kilometers away, and Marcus knew he would never make it back before the storm intensified further. Setting up his emergency shelter took precious minutes that he could barely spare. The compact dome expanded automatically once activated, but the internal heating system would take time to reach optimal temperature. Marcus checked his oxygen levels and calculated he had roughly 18 hours before his suit would start rationing his air supply. Through the howling wind, he detected movement on his motion sensors. Something was approaching from the northeast, approximately 200 meters away. Marcus enhanced his visual display and spotted a figure stumbling through the snow. The shape was humanoid, but moved with an unusual gait that suggested it was not one of his fellow expedition members. The figure collapsed just 50 meters from his shelter. Marcus made a quick decision and activated his emergency beacon before venturing out into the storm. The wind nearly knocked him over as he fought his way through the drifting snow to reach the fallen form. What he found defied his expectations completely. The being was definitely not human, but possessed a distinctly feminine form with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. She wore what appeared to be a form-fitting suit made of some unknown material that provided minimal protection against the extreme cold. Her breathing was shallow, and her lips had taken on a darker shade of blue, indicating severe hypothermia. Marcus did not hesitate. He lifted the alien woman carefully and carried her back to his shelter. The heating system had begun to warm the interior, but it was still uncomfortably cold. He sealed the entrance and immediately began assessing her condition while his suit ran a basic biological scan. The readings were fascinating and alarming in equal measure. Her body temperature was dropping rapidly, and her respiratory system was failing to process the thin atmosphere effectively. Marcus realized that despite their different species, they shared enough physiological similarities that basic first aid might actually help her survive. He activated the emergency medical kit and began working to stabilize her condition. The thermal blankets were designed for human use, but they seemed to provide some benefit as her shivering gradually decreased. Marcus monitored her vital signs through his scanner and was relieved to see them slowly improving. As the hours passed, the storm outside intensified, but the shelter held firm against the battering winds. Marcus found himself studying his unexpected guest more closely. Her features were delicate and ethereal, with large eyes that remained closed and hair that seemed to shift color subtly in the changing light. She was clearly intelligent based on the sophisticated nature of her clothing and equipment. The heating system finally reached optimal temperature, and the interior became comfortably warm. Marcus carefully removed his environmental suit, while keeping his emergency oxygen supply within reach. The alien woman stirred slightly, and her breathing became more regular as her body temperature stabilized. Marcus prepared some of his emergency rations and heated water using the portable cooking unit. He had no idea what her species could safely consume, but he reasoned that basic nutrients and warm liquids might help her recovery. The medical scanner indicated that her biological processes were remarkably similar to human metabolism, despite the obvious physical differences. The storm showed no signs of abating, and Marcus settled in for what would likely be a long wait. He established a communication link with Base Camp and reported his situation, including the discovery of an unknown alien species. The response was immediate and intense, with orders to maintain contact and provide detailed observations about the being he had rescued. Marcus found himself genuinely curious about his guest and hoped she would recover enough to communicate. The discovery of intelligent life was exactly what the expedition had been hoping for, but finding it under these circumstances was completely unexpected. He checked her condition again and was pleased to see continued improvement in her vital signs. As night fell on the frozen world, the shelter became a small island of warmth and safety in the hostile environment. Marcus prepared to maintain watch over his unusual companion while the storm raged outside. He had made a simple decision to help someone in need, but he sensed that this encounter would change everything for both their species. The alien woman's eyes fluttered open just as Marcus was adjusting the heating controls. Her gaze was alert and intelligent as she took in her surroundings. When her eyes met his, there was no fear or hostility, only what appeared to be gratitude and curiosity. She attempted to sit up slowly, and Marcus moved to help her maintain her balance. Her voice was soft and melodic when she finally spoke, though the words were in a language Marcus had never heard before. The universal translator in his communication device activated automatically and began processing her speech patterns. Within minutes, it had established basic linguistic connections, and her words became partially comprehensible. She introduced herself as Kira and explained that she was a scout from a nearby settlement that had been monitoring human activities on the planet. Her people had been observing the expedition from a distance and debating whether to make contact. The sudden storm had caught her away from her base, and she had been trying to return when the cold overwhelmed her systems. Marcus shared his own story and explained the nature of the human expedition. Kira listened intently and asked thoughtful questions about Earth and human civilization. Her intelligence was obvious, and her curiosity about his species seemed genuine. Marcus found himself impressed by her quick grasp of concepts that should have been completely alien to her. The conversation continued through the night as they shared information about their respective worlds and cultures. Kira described her people as explorers and scientists who had been studying this world for generations. They had developed technologies that allowed them to survive in environments that would be lethal to most other species. Marcus learned that Kira's settlement was actually much closer than he had imagined, built into a network of caves that provided natural protection from the harsh surface conditions. Her people had been preparing to make formal contact with the humans, but the timing had never seemed right. The storm had forced her hand in a way that neither species had anticipated. As dawn approached, the storm finally began to subside, and visibility improved dramatically. Marcus could see the landscape clearly for the first time in hours, and was surprised to spot several structures in the distance that had been completely hidden by the blowing snow. Kira explained that those were observation posts her people had established to monitor human activities. The communication from base camp became more frequent and insistent as Marcus reported his conversations with Kira. The expedition leaders were eager to establish formal diplomatic contact, but Marcus insisted on following proper protocols. Kira seemed amused by the human bureaucratic processes, but expressed willingness to meet with the expedition leadership. Marcus began preparing for the journey back to base camp, but Kira suggested an alternative. She could guide him to her settlement, which was much closer, and would provide an opportunity for both species to meet in a neutral environment. The offer was tempting, but Marcus knew he needed authorization from his superiors before taking such a significant step. The decision was made for him when his long-range scanner detected several approaching vehicles from the direction of base camp. The expedition team was coming to investigate his reports and would arrive within hours. Kira observed the preparations with interest and commented on the efficiency of human technology. Marcus realized that this moment would be remembered as the first formal contact between humanity and an alien species. The simple act of offering shelter to someone in need had opened the door to possibilities that neither species had fully considered. He looked at Kira and saw not just an alien being, but a representative of an entire civilization that might become humanity's first true allies among the stars. The rescue vehicles appeared on the horizon just as Marcus finished packing his equipment. Kira stood beside him, watching the approaching convoy with calm curiosity. She had changed from the half-frozen refugee he had found in the storm into a confident diplomat, ready to represent her people in humanity's first interstellar negotiation. Marcus activated his emergency beacon to guide the vehicles to their location, and prepared to make introductions that would change the course of history. The storm had brought them together by chance, but what happened next would be the result of careful planning and mutual respect between two species taking their first steps toward understanding each other. The lead vehicle stopped 50 meters away, and Marcus could see his expedition commander emerging from the heated cabin. Behind him came the expedition's xenobiologist and diplomatic specialist, both clearly excited about the unprecedented opportunity they were about to experience. Kira straightened her shoulders and prepared to meet humanity's representatives. Marcus stepped forward to make the introductions, realizing that his simple act of kindness had set in motion events that would ripple through both civilizations for generations to come. The alien girl he had invited into his tent to warm up had become the bridge between two worlds and the beginning of humanity's journey into a larger universe filled with friends rather than enemies. As the formal introductions began, Marcus reflected on the unpredictable nature of exploration and discovery. He had come to this world to study its geological formations and mineral resources, but instead had found something far more valuable. The storm that had threatened to end his life had instead given him the opportunity to help forge an alliance that would benefit both species for centuries to come. The conversation between the expedition team and Kira proceeded smoothly, with the universal translator handling the linguistic barriers effectively. Marcus watched with pride as the alien woman he had rescued demonstrated the intelligence and dignity of her people. What had begun as a simple rescue operation had evolved into humanity's first diplomatic success among the stars. The implications of this contact would require careful consideration and planning, but Marcus knew that the foundation had been laid for a positive relationship between the two species. His decision to help someone in need regardless of their origin had proven that the best of human nature could transcend the boundaries between worlds and species. As the day progressed and more detailed discussions began, Marcus realized that his role in this historic moment was far from over. He had become the unofficial liaison between the two groups and would likely play a continuing role in the developing relationship. The alien girl who had stumbled into his shelter during the storm had brought with her the promise of a future where humanity would not face the universe alone. The emergency shelter that had protected them through the night became a symbol of the cooperation and mutual aid that would define the relationship between their peoples. Marcus carefully dismantled the equipment, knowing that this simple dome had witnessed the beginning of a new chapter in human history and the start of an alliance that would shape the destiny of both civilizations among the stars.